Imagine the following situation at hand. You're at home looking around your fridge. You see plenty of food there, including some leftovers too. Thing is though, you're not particularly hungry for anything in your fridge. So instead, you close the door of the refrigerator and open the freezer. There you also see an abundance of frozen meals, meats, and even some frozen desserts ready to be picked up out of the box and eaten. Despite the abundance of food in your own freezer, you're still not in the mood for anything. So what do? Oftentimes, you'll probably decide to drive over to your favorite fast food joint or pick up the phone and order takeout. And if you're really desperate for something new, you go to your local Walmart or Rouse's for something quick to eat or make. Oftentimes, these are the decisions of millions of Americans all across the country by a multitude of people, single, married, dating, etc. It doesn't matter at all, as everyone has at least once picked out those options to fill their growling stomachs. Now that I've gotten your attention, I want you to think about the same situation but with a few different circumstances. For one, you're completely out of food, and you're hungry as hell. 2, you're craving anything to eat at this point, and 3, there's no takeout places, no fast food joints for miles on end, and there are only a few local stores in your area. No Walmart, no Rouse's, no nothing. You'd most likely go crazy, wouldn't you? Well, my friend, this was the exact same situation that I was in about 3 years back. I wouldn't exactly say that I've made too many bad decisions in my life for everything to go downhill so fast for me, but then again, maybe I probably fucked up enough times in my life for someone up there to get really pissed off at me and punish me for it. This was some time back. I was 25 at the time, and I lived in an extremely low-populated area, somewhere located in the middle of Mississippi. I can't exactly remember the town itself, but one thing that I do remember about the town was that it had a very strict ruling about how life was supposed to function. Basically, I lived in a small town that was about as Bible Belt as it could be. In fact, you could even call it a strict theocracy as well, seeing as how it was a small town that nobody really visited. They could get away with a lot of things that would otherwise be illegal in most other places. Some of the things include the following. For one, there was a mandatory Sabbath law enacted in the place that made every single business or store, public or private, close their doors on Sunday. It didn't matter if it was a restaurant or whatever. The doors had to be closed down. This, of course, was a huge problem for me personally, mostly because of the fact that Sundays are the only day that I managed to get off from work. Now you might be asking yourself this question. Why not buy food during the week so that you could have enough to keep you alive? I would do that, but I work at a factory about 15 miles away from my house, and the town itself, and the times that I get off are often at around 11 or 12 at night, so almost every store would be closed for the night. The only actual place I would be able to go, not like I had much of a choice, was a small convenience store at the edge of town, but even there I was extremely limited on the food I could eat there. I can't tell you how many nights I've had to eat dry cereal for dinner, or worse, a cheap cup of mac and cheese with a can of beans. Not very appetizing, is it? To be honest with you all, the only real meal I was able to get during my week was on Sundays after church. And no, I'm not particularly a Christian. In fact, I'm a lot more agnostic than anything. However, you see, the local church of the town would host a small banquet each week as a way to, quote-unquote, keep the Sabbath holy and do no work kind of deal. Not exactly sure how in the world that kind of works out. Basically, it was a gathering of everyone to have some fun and eat a ton of food. Yes, I did go there, and yes, the food was amazing. However, this often didn't last long, so I had to be extremely quick in order to get the food I needed to fill my stomach for the day. Now, on rare occasions, I was able to take home some leftovers from some of the housewives I'd made, but more often than not, the food would have already been devoured up at the end of the banquet. This was pretty much my routine for many months, until I wound up getting extremely sick of everything and going to the mayor of the town and complaining. As you would have expected, this didn't go out well. In fact, he even had the audacity to say that I was some kind of spiritual snake that wanted to pervert the minds of the younger children to have them break God's law and go into other vile sins or some other stupid shit like that. All because I wanted to get some food into my system on the only day that I could get off from work. I could have easily retorted back and thought that his laws were absolute bullshit and that his god is a masochist, but for the sake of manners and my own head, I just nodded and went my way home. For another few months, I thought I would ultimately kill over at any point in time due to the lack of nutrition that I was receiving throughout the week. Combine that with the amount of work that I had to do, it was absolutely miserable for me. I would have quit my job to move, but I was kind of stuck there due to some kind of 5-year contract that I had to sign in order to even get my job in the first place. Thankfully, though, that all changed in the fall of 2017, when a new store opened up in town right across the street from where the mayor's office was at. I, at first, hadn't heard anything for the week until I had made my way over towards a church banquet that Sunday. The place was absolutely huge and rather modern looking as well. The building itself was a solid green and blue striped colored building with a large sign above it, above the mechanical doors reading, "Dollar or Bust." Below the words were the slogan, "Everything here is $1 or less or we bust." Below that was a banner that read, "Now open." Now, normally this kind of thing wouldn't really intrigue me too much. I mean, it kind of looked more like a Dollar Tree ripoff. However, my curiosity piqued immediately when I noticed that the inside of the store was completely lit, and that the people were inside. Well, the cashiers and clerks, that is. After getting some food at the church banquet and filling up my stomach, I made my way over towards the store and walked over towards it with a giddiness that was usually reserved for small children. To state that the store was huge on the inside would be an understatement. The place looked a lot bigger than it had on the outside of the place. Row after row of items consisting of cleaning products, food, and other items lined each of the shelves in a perfect and clean manner. And not to mention that the store itself was huge. I mean, I know I've already mentioned that, but it was really frickin' huge. As you would have guessed, I immediately grabbed a shopping cart and started going all over the place, getting whatever food I felt like getting. Bread, pasta, pasta sauce, vegetables, yes, both the canned and fresh variety as well, as they had their own produce section, and other pantry and fridge items as well. Now, after spending nearly 2 hours walking down each of the aisles getting whatever I thought I needed and wanted, I came across the frozen section of the store, which, to my shock, was really small compared to the rest of the store. There may have been at least 3 or 4 freezers and refrigerators in total, and they honestly didn't have much to offer. Just some 2-quart milk jugs, some kind of Hershey shake drinks, a variety of eggs and some cheeses, mostly fake, but others that were actually real cheese, and finally some packs of processed meat like hot dogs, bologna, and other things too. Despite this limited selection, I quickly grabbed as much as I could and made my way over to the checkout line. I think I spent about $800 that day, which was amazing. I finally had enough food to last me at least a few weeks, but I definitely made sure that I'd at least go there each and every Sunday if I needed anything. Despite that fact, however, and the ultimate joy that I was going through, I seriously thought this was a blessing sent from heaven for me. However, a majority of the town folks, however, saw this as a in the rather negative light. In fact, within a few weeks of the place opening, there were already protests going on outside of the place every Sunday. Even the mayor himself hated the new place with a burning passion and joined in on the protesters. It got so bad that the management of the store had to hire in some security guards to keep the people from getting too rowdy and destroying the place. I myself even wound up getting into the line of fire occasionally when a few preachers and a few of their wives wound up throwing crap at me as I made my way into the store. Sure, I could have easily beaten the shit out of all of them, but due to the fact that I'm a relative pacifist, I refrained. Now, I originally thought at the time that things were only going to go as so far, to have a bunch of street preachers and a few angry, pissed-off people protesting the place. But knowing how this town is, I should have known better than that. After a few weeks of protest, people began to go to the mayor and ask him to pretty much do something about the place to begin with. They claimed that the store was evil for breaking God's law, and that if they didn't get rid of it soon, they would ultimately incur the wrath of God upon their town, and there'd be a bunch of other crazy shit. I mean, at least as they say. The mayor, despite hating the place as well, said that there really wasn't much he could do about it. They were ultimately legally there, and they'd followed every guideline and such, and thus He couldn't do much to stop them, even with his amount of crazy power. Now, when I found that out, I found it rather funny how stupid that guy was. I mean, didn't he establish a Sabbath law or something stupid like that as well? Well, ultimately, everyone in the town decided to boycott the place, as well as protested as well to try and have the place shut down due to lack of funds. This was a huge problem for me, and because of the fear of losing this place, and thus being stuck back with having little to no food around for the week, I went there every single week and paid a crap ton of cash for the food that they had. Honestly, I bought so much food that I even had to use a shed in the backyard of my house to hold all the canned goods that I bought. Now this is where things got a little bit odd. During one of my ramages of the store, I had noticed that the refrigerator and freezer section of the dollar or bus store had expanded by a good bit, and I hadn't even noticed it at first. Most likely they had probably installed them once they got more shipments or things, probably during the week. Riding my now completely full cart to the freezer section of the store, I noticed that there were, alongside the dairy, cheese, and eggs, various meats all packed up in individual packets. This immediately piqued my curiosity, so I opened up one of the doors and pulled out one of the meat packs at random. Upon closing the door shut, I took a look at the label. Dollar or Bust brand, 100% ground beef with a 3% solution added. That's what the package ultimately said. I was a bit confused, but at the same time completely shocked. I mean, a pound of ground meat just for $1? And I made sure to check too, and no, there wasn't any kind of ground up beef patty or anything remotely garbage like that. It was pure meat. Despite my excitement, I was still a bit hesitant to, buy meat from a dollar store, so just to be safe, I grabbed a few packs of their ground beef and made my final purchases. As I exited the store, I noticed that there weren't that many protesters around, which was a bit odd, but at the same time, I never really paid too much attention to these guys anyway. I never needed to unless there was a confrontation that I needed to deal with. And also it may have been likely that they already went home for the night, seeing how it was rather late. So putting my groceries into my car, I went home and put everything away. Later that night, I made myself a couple of delicious cheeseburgers using that ground beef I had gotten at the store that night, as well as chopping up a couple of russet potatoes or some fries as well. Now here's the interesting thing when I opened the packet of meat. It smelled really sweet, almost like candy, which I will admit was actually kind of disgusting. I mean, I checked the package to see if it had expired or anything, but this meat wasn't supposed to go bad for at least a couple of weeks at the most. I rinsed the solution off of the meat as best as I could using my strainer to see if that was what was causing the odd sugary smell, but when I went to take a little whiff of the meat, it still had that candy sweet smell to it, no matter how many times I washed it off. Well, seeing as how I'd already taken it out of the package, I quickly got to work cooking the hamburgers and frying up the fries for my rather late dinner of the night. Now while at first the sweet smell was a bit overbearing, the smell soon faded away, but with a slight scent that was actually rather pleasant. When I actually got around to eating the burger, I will admit, the meat itself was a mixture of dry and moist. The taste of the meat was actually very, very delicious. In fact, it was actually quite sweet. It had a taste of pork with a hint of a cherry glaze to it. I don't really know why, but it was amazing. Needless to say, it was a very good burger, and the sweetness in the meat actually helped make it better. I mean, for $1, that ground beef was definitely worth it, and I made sure of it to enjoy every single little bite of it. Now, while my taste buds certainly had been satisfied that night, my stomach, on the other hand, was certainly not agreeing with the food that I had eaten. In fact, I was going through a really painful stomach ache that lasted for almost the whole night. To add a little bit more insult to injury, I even wound up shitting my pants by accident, thus ruining not only my clothes, but also requiring me to immediately go to grab my sheets and the mattress cover and put them in the washing machine to clean them. After putting in the rest of my soiled clothes and hopping into the shower to clean myself off, I wondered to myself what the hell was going on with me. What had caused me to not only get sick, but crap my pants as well. After thinking about it a bit, after my stomach had finally calmed down enough, I thought about the dinner that I'd eaten that night. I knew for a fact that this had nothing to do with anything remotely greasy. I mean, I'd eaten tons of greasy food in the past, and I could handle it well. But then I thought about the ground meat that I had eaten. Maybe it probably had spoiled or something, which was likely the reason for the odd sweet smell, and the up stomach that I had now. After giving it some more thought, I ultimately decided that I wouldn't buy the meat anymore from the dollar store again, and just stick with the local butcher shop if I ever had time, which most likely was going to be never, given the circumstance that I was in. So until then, I'd have to get my protein from beans and other things as well. And to be honest, it kinda sucked. The meat was really damn good, and to sit there and not be able to eat it anymore, just, well, like I said, it sucked. Thankfully, though, I didn't have to really worry too much about it, because, as I've said, I have a ton of more food, so I didn't really need to worry too much about it. The next Sunday that had passed by was honestly something that kind of disturbed me a little bit. The protesters that had originally stood out in front of the store were now reduced to at least a few dozen or so people now, which may or may not have seemed too, shocking or anything, but, I mean, normally this kind of thing wouldn't really bother me too much. Perhaps they had probably realized that what they were doing was absolutely ridiculous and just left the people be. However, when I noticed that the people at the banquet, including a few pastors, had gone missing, I was disturbed. I even asked a few people around, and they said that they hadn't seen them for quite some time now. And every time I went into the store, I noticed that there would be more and more meat packaged inside of the fridge. I knew that something was up, and I wanted to know what was going on. So I pretty much hid myself in the bathroom overnight. Which I know ultimately was probably extremely stupid of me to do because, I mean, the security guards or whoever could have easily found me, but thankfully nobody went into the restrooms, so I was pretty much safe for the time being. Once I was assured that the entire place was clear, I quickly made my way out of the bathrooms and into the main area. Well, the shopping area specifically. Shockingly enough, a few of the lights were still on, although not all of them were. There were just a couple of lights that were lit up, which were enough to help me find my way towards the employee-only storage area. Slipping into the room as quietly as I could, I made my way, trying to navigate as best as I could through the dark room, towards a large metal door with a small hatch, and a small frosted window above it. I carefully grabbed at the hatch and pulled. It opened up without much effort. Slowly but surely, I made my way into the icy room, shivering as I made my way deeper into it. There, after adjusting myself to the blue light in the room, I saw it. Or rather, them. Bodies. Many, many bodies. All of which had been decapitated, their limbs removed, and had been gutted so that there was nothing left but an empty torso. Turning around and nearly vomiting at the sight, I turned towards the door and noticed that on the right side of the door that I had entered into, there was a large metal box filled to the brim with human innards and other discarded body parts, and even a couple of heads that rested on the top, that stared at me with their glossy vision. Not wanting to just stand there and see any more of this disgusting shit, I quickly bolted out of the freezer door and back out into the main shopping area. However, before I could even make my way towards them, a hand grasped my arm, stopping me mid-flight. "Sir, I need you to come with me, please," a stern voice said as it began to drag me towards a door near the main entrance. I looked up at him and saw that he was one of the security guards. I knew that I was likely in deep shit for staying after hours, but at the same time, I wanted nothing more than to expose to him what I had just seen. After opening the door that the guard had taken me to, I was pushed into the room where I was met by another guard and a man who I assumed to be the manager, sitting down at his desk, with a monitor resting atop his desk area turned on. "Please, take a seat," the manager said as he pointed towards a seat. I reluctantly did as I was told. I would have bolted right then and there, but I was still in shock after what I had just seen. "You seem kind of tense. I think you might need this." "I guess I've got a lot of explaining to do, don't I?" the manager said as he pulled out a bottle of water from a small mini fridge and handed it to me. What the fuck is going on here? I snapped as I took a small swig of the water that I'd been given. What does it look like? You saw what you saw, didn't you? We have everything on recording, the manager said rather rudely. What kind of fucked up people are you? Who the hell are you? Who the hell were those people? I snapped once again. Before explaining, I'm gonna ask you to please remain calm, Mr. What's your name? Fuck you, I spat. I highly doubt that that's actually your real name, sir, but if you don't want to say anything, that's fine. We're not here to interrogate you, the manager said calmly. I didn't say much of anything at that point, I just let it all happen. I suppose you're wondering what the heck all of that was in the freezer. And yes, you are correct. Those are most certainly bodies, the manager said. What the fuck? I said. I get that a lot, the manager began. But I want to say this right now. If you think that we're planning on killing you, stalking you, or anything else like such, rest assured that we aren't going to do anything of the sort. In fact, once our little talk is done, you'll be free to leave if you wish, the manager said. That caught me off guard. I just found out that they were using human meat for their food, and they have no plans to kill me off despite the fact that I know. I mean, what kind of place was this? I mean, sure, I'm grateful that I wasn't going to die, but still though. I'm quite sure you're ready for that explanation now, the manager said. This store, as you see here today, is simply a front, to be honest with you. We're not a chain of stores, nor are we in an independent store either. What we are, though, is an organization that helps get rid of, well, undesirables, if you want to call them that. Now, to answer the question that you might have for us, no, we don't go around killing innocent people, children, or hell, even animals, for that matter. Unless it's that cow meat that we mix in with the human meat and put in for our ground beef, we only target those who are really evil people of this world. Corrupt politicians, pedophiles, child rapists and murderers, various violent gangs, serial rapists, and anything else that's drastically disgusting and evil, we take care of. And this place is what we do. And this place that we were at right now, this little town here is full of them. But what about the pastors, the women, the protesters, I said. Not who you think they are, sir. In fact, here, take a look for yourself. I have a couple of people here that you might know a little bit, the manager said as he proceeded to hand me a few manila envelopes which I opened up. The first picture I saw was a local pastor who held the local banquets each and every Sunday. Reverend Miller Watts, the manager began, serial pedophile to the fullest degree. He holds those banquets each week so that the parents who are busy eating and such, and of course he gets that opportunity and lures the kids into the main sanctuary and, well, does horrible things to those children. He gets away with it due to the fact that he's respected in this fucking town. And those poor kids go unbelieved and even thrown out of their own homes because their parents either think that they're gay or they're liars. The manager then pointed to another folder, to which I opened up. Like the first picture, this one surprised me. Miss Mary J. Ankins, the manager began. She's someone that is what many of us here would call a sadist times 10. She was a local nursery caretaker. Mary Atkins hated kids to the fullest extent. In fact, she hated them so much that she would torture any of the kids that even came to her daycare. And no, she didn't particularly abuse them physically. She did it a lot more mentally, as a way to sit there and not really get any kind of evidence. And she did it in ways that honestly made any of the children's lives worse. Not only there, but also at home. She would do everything in her power to try and break the kids' will by either insulting them, calling them disgusting and foul things, and even tell all of them how much their parents hated them at home, and that they all should die, and other horrible things too. And of course, to add insult to injury, she would write notes to the parents and explain how bad they were, even making messes and such by herself in order to blame the kids. In this town, the verse, "Spare the rod, spoil the child," is taken as literally as it could be. Honestly, the amount of thrashing those children wind up getting in the past were probably awful for something that they didn't even do. The manager then pointed to one final envelope, which I opened as well. Our final contestant, Alfred Jones, or should I call him Mayor Jones, the manager began. He is one of the most corrupted political individuals that you have ever met, as I'm sure you've seen. I nodded and the manager continued. He's the reason why the town is the way that it is. And not just because because of his crazy fundamentalist shit that he spouts out over every election season to get votes. I mean, he's done more than that. He's accepted bribes from preachers, he's a filthy little whore as well, and the worst part about him is that he's actually had people executed for the most innocent things out there that this world knows, because he thinks of them as being disgusting sins that need to be terminated in the eyes of God, or something like that. He's about as bad as the preacher is, to be honest with you. Now, he's done some other stuff that I'd rather not go into too much detail, but I think you get the gist of everything, the manager said. I sat there in complete shock. I mean, these people, what they did was disgusting and wrong, yet at the same time, they did deserve to die, but the way that they were killed, I mean, I was really torn on the matter. The manager patted me on the back and then said a few things. I get it. This has taken some time for you to process, but the evidence is right there in front of you. I know for a fact that you'll understand soon enough why we do these things. Whether or not you consider them wrong or not is really your own thoughts. But what matters right now is that we do what we need to do. And it's not just here. It's other places as well that we're needed. We just continue on forward with whatever needs to be done. But what if I expose you all? What if I call the police and tell them everything that they've done? I said, go right on ahead. It doesn't bother any of us in the slightest. In fact, you're absolutely welcome to do so if you want. But I'm sure that not many people will honestly believe you. I mean, hasn't someone like this told something like this in every horror story out there? You'd just be seeing the same thing that many people have been writing about for years. And honestly, who will believe that? Now, you're free to leave if you wish, sir, and do please come back anytime you wish, the manager said as one of his guards pulled me out of his office and back outside into the cool, crisp night air. I didn't say anything when I was pushed out there, nor did I really do much of anything except drive home and pack everything up into whatever boxes I could get my hands on. I didn't care if I lost my job. At this point, I just wanted to get the fuck out of Dodge and go somewhere else that I could get away from all this craziness. I left as soon as I had the last box packed up in my car. I still think about it to this very day. Everything that had been told to me and everything that had been done. Perhaps maybe I should have called the police, but then again though, it's not like these people were really killing anybody that was innocent. These people were horrible people that deserved every ounce of pain that they deserved. But at the same time, though, shouldn't this be something that should be left over to the police and the other authorities? Or are they as corrupted as well? I don't know. But another thing that gets to me is why in the world are they selling their meat? I mean, if anything, if it was up to me, I would have already gotten rid of their bodies or something, not use them for food. Maybe there was something symbolic behind it. I don't really know. I still think of these things every now and then. And here I am, sitting on my computer, typing away at this, telling you all my experience. I haven't felt threatened in any way, and nor has anybody tried to kill me yet, which is good. It just means that they've honestly kept up with their side. I don't know really what else to even say at this point. The only thing now I have to do is just tell my story and wait. Just wait for whatever has to be said. And honestly, what I'd like to hear from you guys, because honestly, I just don't know anymore. Hello there, my little shadows. It's me again, your master, the Shadow Reader. I hope you all enjoyed this little tale of horror. I honestly hope I didn't traumatize you too much after this. If you're new here and want to become one of my little shadows, then hit that subscribe button down below, and also make sure to turn on post notifications so that you can be the first to watch my brand new content when it comes out. Until then, sweet dreams, my little shadows.